And I'm Alan Wallstetter, President of School Improvement Partnership, bringing you the first School Improvement Partnership News Hour, news you can use. We start this afternoon's broadcast from the nation's capital with Tressa Pankovits, actually a Emmy award-winning broadcaster who also serves as the editor of Charter School Investor. Tressa also serves as the associate director of the Reinventing America's Schools project at the Progressive Policy Institute in Washington, D.C. Because Tressa researches and does her work in Washington, D.C., she has her finger on the pulse of charter school policy matters that are important to folks on the ground in places like North Carolina. And Tressa is going to share a little bit of that with us today. Tressa.
Thanks so much, Alan, and thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon. And I want to give a special shout out for any educators that have logged in. Y'all are on the ground doing really hard work in a really hard climate, and it's just an honor to support you in that work in the background. So thanks for joining us here today. So as Alan mentioned, I am headquartered in Washington, D.C., and I spend my entire workday thinking, and some of my non-workday thinking, about charter schools and the policies that affect them, and looking at what's going on around the nation. And so this is just an opportunity for you to get a little bit of that from me. We know that charter schools have been in a tough political situation the last few years. There's a lot of well-funded, highly organized groups out there that would really like nothing more than to see our school districts go back to an antiquated, centralized, top-down bureaucracy. So what we do is we report out on what's happening in the hopes of getting the grassroots motivating teachers, motivating school leaders, and working, of course, in tandem with charter school organizations like associations like the one you have in North Carolina. So when the year started, before we all went indoors, we saw an effort from both Democrats in Congress and the White House to eliminate the Charter School Fund, which is the federal fund that funds new charter schools. And so that was a little surprising to see that both sides of the aisle in Washington, D.C. were not in favor of continuing this fund that's been in place since President Clinton and is there to help charter schools, a lot of them mom and pop, not just the big networks, expand their campuses and grow. Out on the presidential trail, of course, we know that the primary was not too kind to charter schools. None of the primary candidates came out in favor of charter schools until the very end. Cory Booker, to give him credit, did. But and so we'll have to see what happens in this next administration, if things get a little better or if we're going to have to step up our advocacy. So another thing that you're probably most aware of is that most charter school policy happens at the state level. We've also seen some stuff with charter schools that's is a precautionary note. For example, a long way from North Carolina, out in California, Governor Gavin Newsom signed a package of bills that were designed to tighten up controls on charter schools. And while it's never bad to want accountability or transparency, this should serve a note to charter school leaders, even in states where this isn't yet happening or maybe won't happen, that now is a time to keep your books really in order, keep everything above board, keep everything organized so that if there are additional accountability measures that are coming to bear, you'll be prepared for it. So that was kind of a negative start to my talk, but I wanted to touch on the good news, which is that we have seen in study after study since spring and summer that charter school leaders actually have responded to the pandemic much more quickly than school districts have. In many, many cases, they were able to lift up their families, get their kids connected, get the kids devices, and keep in close touch. They were able to pivot to distance learning more quickly than some of the school districts were. One of my colleagues said it's like the school districts were ocean liners and the charter schools were swift boats. So in addition to commending you all for that work, I also wanted to point it out because this is really a time for charter schools to shine. This is the chance for us to show in this sector that we put our students first no matter what. We are willing to adapt. We are innovators. We are entrepreneurial. And we always put the needs of our marginalized children first. We know that charter schools disproportionately serve a lot of Black and brown children. And of course, those were the families that were the hardest hit by the pandemic because in most cases, those parents didn't have the luxury of working from home. They had to still go out to their jobs. So this is a chance for charter schools to really showcase what they're doing and get out there, talk to your friends, make sure everybody in the community knows what a good job that you've been doing for the kids. And we'll see what 2021 brings on the policy side of things. Thanks.